most people would say online is don't be comfortable, step out of your comfort zone. I say it's just pure like laziness. People just are lazy. They're not willing to take that extra step and step out of their comfort zone to do something for themselves. I was never good at sales, right? I never good in communication. So it was very, very hard to scale my business. That's the great thing about mentorships. Your network is truly your net worth. Right. What I would recommend any entrepreneur out there that's looking to get started with any business is invest into a mentor, invest into the guidance. I'm your typical Mexican, right? So my parents would tell me, you either go to 2020. I was never good at sales, right? I never good in communication. So it was very, very hard to scale my business.
It feels that you realize, hey, I can't do this anymore.
It gets crazy out there. But one thing that ultimately got me to want to leave the oil fields was...
Nobody ever asked me that question before.
What the hell? Stop.
Niggas, I ain't coming on the show again.
I come in here, it looks professional. Tune into the content.
Like you were telling you guys, I'm like...
I like when people have good questions.
Welcome back to another episode of Direct Discussions Podcast, and today we're going to learn how to make some passive income again. But before we get started, I want to go ahead and get a couple things out of the way. So today's episode is going to be about making passive income, which was stated earlier, but this time it's really passive because it's an ATM business. So without further ado, let's go to introduce the guest for today, Juan, the ATM guru, Jeronimo.
Hey, what's up, my man? How's it going?
How are you, bud?
I'm doing good.
Man, I appreciate you making the drive out here, man, and basically drop a lot of gems about the ATM business. But before we get to the meat and potatoes of the conversation, what I really want to know is, why ATMs?
So ultimately, before I got started with the ATM business, I'm your typical Mexican, right? So my parents would tell me, you either go to school or you get a reliable job, like become supervisor and a manager somewhere in the AC, right? My dad, worked construction all his life. My mom in a factory. So they were like, do something good, right? So school wasn't for me. I went to the oil fields of West Texas because I got the opportunity to work out there, get good money. But then I started missing a lot of time with family, right? I was working out there for freaking 10 days, coming back home for 4, working long hours. And long story short, man, I was like, I can't continue to do this for the rest of my life, right? I was literally living out there and visiting home practically, right? So I was like, I need to figure out how I can make my money work for me. Because working in the oil fields, I was making good money. I was single at the time. Well, I had my girlfriend, but I had no kids. So I was just stacking up my money just like any young person would. And I was not going out. So I was like, man, I got to figure out how I can make my money work for me. So it started off with gumball machines. Gumball machines, put a little 25 cents. You make, a few cents per gumball and whatnot. That turned into vending machines. And then after looking into vending machines, it led into ATMs. And for me, ATMs just seemed a lot more simple than vending machines or even gun balls, because you don't have to buy product and whatnot. Just go to the bank, withdraw some money, and fill it up. And that's kind of how it led into me starting an ATM business, man.
So now that we're talking about ATMs, I'm assuming this is early in your adult life, but where in your mind do you feel like the entrepreneurship spirit happened? Was it in middle school, high school? Yeah. Where did you get that first taste of entrepreneurship that, resonated with you in your back of the mind and didn't really show up until you were an adult?
Since I was a little kid, I always loved money. Always. My mom doesn't, I haven't even told this to my mom yet, but back in the day, she would have money sitting in her drawer or something, a few dollars and whatnot. I would go into her room and I'll see it and I'll take it and I'll just have that money because I just loved having money, right? So, growing up as a kid, I remember even being 17 years old, we lived in a dead end street, right? In the ghetto. So dead end street, we were the last house at the end of the street. So no cars would really pass through there. But my dad, he used to set up garage sales, and he used to like sell tools and things like that. So then I started getting the idea. I'm like, man, I have all these toys. Let me set up a little table in the front of the house, set up all my toys, and then see if I can sell anything, right? Excuse me. Now, of course, we're in a dead end street, so I didn't sell anything. But since I've done that, that kind of sparked that entrepreneurship for me. And I mean, it goes all the way into like down into like elementary, middle school, where I finally started to like really put my money to work for me. And in middle school, we had a Family Dollar across the street, right? I would go in the Family Dollar and I'll buy like packs of candy for $1, and I would go back to middle school, stuff them in my backpack, and I'll sell each piece of candy for like 50 cents, $1. So then I'll turn that pack of $1.25 or whatnot into like $5-6, and I'll go buy more packs, and then I'll go sell them. Little do you know, I'm walking out of school with like $10, right? $15, right? And ever since then, I mean, I was a kid in high school that would buy candy, buy chips, and sell them during school. And
oh, so you were the guy with the duffel bag?
Yeah, well, I didn't go that far. I would like stuff them in my backpack or whatnot, but I mean, I never went to the point where I would stuff my duffel bag, because at the end of the day, in high school, I was an athlete. I was playing soccer since my freshman year in high school. So I didn't really have time to be around like selling things. I had to like really make sure that I was on top of my classes if I wanted to continue to play for the varsity team, which I was playing with them since freshman year. So that was kind of what my entrepreneurship like journey looked during like my youth, I guess.
So with entrepreneurship, I know a major factor in entrepreneurship is the love of the game, the competition. Do you feel like your drive to becoming a varsity soccer player in high school had anything to do with instilling those principles inside of you?
Yeah, man, most definitely, because whenever we were trying out for the soccer team, I mean, and mind you, I started playing soccer in middle school. So ideally, you don't learn how to play soccer and then have the skills to play varsity once you get to high school if you just started in middle school. So whenever I went to go try out for the team, everybody, I mean, juniors, seniors would be like, bro, you're a freshman and you're short. It's going to be very hard for you to get into the varsity team, right? But I just took that as motivation, and I took it as like the motivation to drive me to push harder, to run extra, to run drills, and even after practice or after tryouts, go home and still practice more, right? So that I can make the varsity team. And that, I feel like, definitely helped me out with my entrepreneurship, journey, and drive me to, do what I do now, right?
Yeah. So fast forward a little bit. Let's say you graduate high school. How long after high school did you hit the oil fields?
It was a few years after. I graduated high school at 18, and I started working at a car wash since my junior year. I started working at a car wash from my junior year to my senior year, right? And a little bit into college, because I did go to college, and learning how to detail cars, vacuum, polish, all that good stuff. Then I went to college, and at the time I also had a 2015 Camaro SS. So I was a high school kid, a senior in high school with a 2015 Camaro SS. And this was like 2016, 2017 at the time. So then, whenever I went to high school, I realized high school wasn't for me. Not only that, I had $1,000 car note that I had to cover every single month, because my parents made it clear.
Yeah.
They were like, hey, if you get this car, we're going to help you out by putting our credit on the line. Mm-hmm. But if you get this car, you better make sure that you freaking pay that car off.
Yeah.
Right. So I would work at the car wash, work 40 hours. And then they wouldn't let us put overtime, by the way. Plus, I'm in high school, right? So then I would literally drive to Allen, Texas, to work at their sister car wash and put my extra time there. So I would put in 40 hours at one car wash and then put in like another 10, 15 hours at the other car wash, make a little extra money. So then again, I got to college, right? I realized it wasn't for me, because I couldn't spend all that time in school again and then still have to pay for my car, because the college schedule is not like high school, right? You go to school from like 9 to like 3 or 4, and then you go to work the rest of the day, right?
Yeah.
College was different. You go to school in the morning, in the afternoons, and even in the evenings. So because the schedule was crazy, I was like, yeah, college, I have to take a break on college, because I have to figure out where to work. So then I went to go work at a produce place. drove the big box trucks delivering produce to like CC's and grocery stores and whatnot. Worked that for a few months, but then one of my coworkers was like, "Hey, dude, I'm going to the oil fields. They're gonna start us off like $20 an hour," and he was like, "Do you want to go?" I'm like, "Sure." I drove out there to Pecos, Texas for an interview. This was like 2018, 2019. So literally like a year or so after high school. Drove out there, did the interview, came back. They gave me the call like, "Hey, man, we're going to hire you." I'm like, "All right." So drove out there for my first, we used to call them hitches, right? So like your first hitch, you go out there for 10 days. Went out there, and ever since then, man, you know, I stayed in the oil fields probably for like a year and a half, 2 years. But it was like, man, literally like a year and a half to 2 years right after high school. Yeah.
Okay, so for you staying at the oil fields as long as you did, you know, and this is one thing that I see a lot of people deal with when they're at a job. You know, they get complacent. They like the money. They're like, okay, this is fine. This is taking care of what I need to take care of. I could probably be here a lot longer. But at what point in your time at the oil fields did you realize, hey, I can't do this anymore?
Yeah.
I know you mentioned earlier that you started missing out on family, but was there any other factors into it? Like,
Yeah.
but kind of just put yourself in that mindset when you were actually in the oil fields. Because, I mean, a lot of people will say, oh, good money, blah, 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 and this and that. But, I mean, is money really everything?
I mean, to me at least, it wasn't. Reason why I'm not there anymore, right? But what I used to experience out there in the oil fields was pretty crazy, right? I actually had 2 life-changing experiences that ultimately caused me to come back home, besides just wanting to be financially free, right? But I had coworkers out there like 60 years old. We had someone out there in the field, 70 years old, still working out there, right? Doing light work, but still working out there, right? And all these guys had 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 10-year-olds, right? 15-year-olds at the house. And I'm like, how can you miss all these years away from your kids? And I was like, I can't picture myself doing that. And it was, it was like one night, because out there we would work long hours. We would work like 15, 16, 17 on average daily, the hours that we would put in on a daily basis, right? My longest day of working out there in the oil fields actually was like 21 hours in one day. So, you know, it gets crazy out there. But one thing that ultimately, you know, got me to want to leave the oil fields was losing control on my vehicle, driving to our job site, right? So I was driving our pickup truck to our job site, and I was tired, man. Even though I was young, I was able to take the beating and everything, but I got to the point where I was starting to get drained. And I was driving to one of our rigs, and I was driving on a road. It's called 285 on Pecos, Texas.
Yeah.
It's a road known. It's a deadly road, man. People crash head on. So then I was driving down that road, man. It was like 3 a.m. or something like that, and I fell asleep behind the wheel. Right, I fell asleep behind the wheel, and the only reason I got up was because I just started like feeling a bumpy ass road, and I woke up. I'm on the side of the road on the gravel, running straight into a light post. So what I do, bro, I instantly reacted. I swerved to the left, went to oncoming traffic. Thankfully, bro, and I thank God every day, thankfully there was no vehicle coming on the other side of that road. Because if there was, I wouldn't be here telling you the story. But that moment right there, I mean, I pulled over, bro. I like started crying. Like I called my girl and everything. I'm like, man, I don't think I can do this. I don't think it's worth it. Right. And that was one of the moments where I was like, man, this is really not worth my life. Right. And reason why that was like the climax, the high point of my journey within the oil fields was because there's been multiple accidents with my coworkers driving, getting into accidents, getting paralyzed, breaking their freaking necks and things like that.
They're not even getting hurt at the job site per se. They're getting hurt on the way to work.
Yeah. Because everybody's just so tired. And we have a coworker who was a CDL driver out there, and he would tell us all the time how he's ran into a couple incidents where he had to pull over on the side of the road and help people out of the vehicles because the vehicle was catching fire. He actually had one experience where one person, unfortunately, couldn't help him, and he caught on fire inside of the vehicle because he couldn't get out, and the guy burned alive. That's insane. I mean, all of this played in my head during that same exact moment. And whenever I went through that exact moment, bro, I was like, man, I can't do this. I gotta get out of here, right? And shortly after, my girlfriend told me, "Hey, I'm pregnant, right? We're gonna have a kid." And at that point, I was like, "That's it. I gotta pack my stuff and go, right?" And ever since then, man, I came back home and we received our little girl. She's 5 years old now, and since then, man, that's the start of my journey here as an entrepreneur, I guess.
It's crazy to think because a lot of people, and I guess maybe this is more of a generational mindset thing where they take pride and spend, and they're like, okay, I have to do X, Y, Z to take care of my family. And you see this with your parents, and you've seen this with your friends' parents and whatnot, where they are willing to like, and I don't even think it's the mothers that are, in that mindset, but it's more so the guys where they would rather work extremely long hours just to say, hey, at least I'm taking care of my kids. And I don't know, bro. I don't like that trade-off. And maybe it's just us as, 20-year-olds right now where we're just like, nah, because then we look at our past and then we start realizing, dang, our parents weren't there for us as much as we want to be for our kids. So with that being said, what do you think? And and you can agree with me if not, but in your mind, those older people at the oil fields, what do you think keeps them at the job site instead of pursuing some sort of form of entrepreneurship?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of and I speak for Mexicans because both my parents are Mexican. The shocking truth about Mexicans is that they're like, hey, if you're making good money, right, and you have a roof over your head, you're taking care of your family, the bills are paid, then stick with it and don't be a wuss. And that's just what the Mexican mentality is like, you're making money, right? You're not comfortable, but it's okay because you got a roof over your head. You're taking care of your family, right? And I feel like a lot of the guys out there pretty much had that mentality. They were like, well, I have no other choice but to work here and make money and provide for my family, right? And that was, I feel like, the thing that was holding them in there, right? I say this from her first experience, right? My dad worked construction his entire life. Even right now, he's still working construction because he refuses to retire right now. Because both my parents are like, if we retire, what are we going to do? We're going to stay home and be bored all day, right? So even right now, being in there, my dad about to turn 60, right? Getting ready to retire, right? But he was like, man, I don't even think I'm going to retire because it's just, what am I going to do, right? I got to make money, right? And I just feel like that's their mentality. Like, as long as you're getting the bills paid, as long as everything's getting taken care of, don't be a wuss. Get out. I mean, stay in and, don't get out. I say this because whenever I gave everybody the news, hey, I'm quitting the oil fields, they were like, why would you do that? You're making close to $100,000 a year at 21, 22 years old.
Yeah.
Why the hell would you do that? Right? You can get your house. You can, get this, get that, not have to worry about anything because you're making good money. I'm like, yeah, but at what cost is working out there making close to $100,000 a year worth me missing my family, right? Missing my daughter now that's gonna be here 9 months, and missing her first steps, her first words, right? Just watching her grow up in time frames, and every time I'm here, she's 10 days older, and I got to miss so much, right? So I was like, at what cost is that even worth it, right? So I definitely got that experience from just my family, my friends were like, dude, you're paying the bills, you're making money, and you have a little extra. Why the heck would you leave the oil fields? And I just feel like that's just their mentality. When you don't have anything to resort to, that's your only option, is to work. It's a guaranteed paycheck.
So what do you think has to happen in the mind of somebody to make that switch from working a 9 to 5 to pursuing entrepreneurship?
Yeah. In my honest opinion, bro, and a lot of people might hate this, right? But it's all about disciplines and not being lazy, right? Or in other words, like most people would say online, is don't be comfortable. Step out of your comfort zone. I say it's just pure laziness. People just are lazy. They're not willing to take that extra step and step out of their comfort zone to do something for themselves. And I feel like that's what it is. I feel like a lot of people just don't want to take that extra step and create something for their own because they know that it's going to take time. They know that it isn't easy, right? And because of that exact reason, people choose to work a 9 to 5 because all they have to do is show up and get paid, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to with entrepreneurship, you have to show up and you still have to work to get your money, right? You get to decide what you make, but at the end of the day, you have to put in the work, right? Because no one's going to make that money for you. I mean, you could work a 9 to 5 clock in and freaking milk the clock for 4 hours, and that's a guaranteed 4 hours that you already got paid.
Yeah.
It's different with entrepreneurship, and people realize that. So that's why I feel like it's just people don't try it or people don't do it. It's just they don't want to step out of their comfort zone. They're too comfortable. And on top of that, most people are lazy. They just don't want to do it.
Most definitely. So, okay, you leave the oil field, you get the news that you're having a baby. From the time she was pregnant to the time you were having a baby, what did you do then? Did you figure out a way to do passive income, or did you do something else to make money in between, or how was that journey like?
Yeah, so having that entrepreneurship mindset, like being an aspiring entrepreneur, definitely helped me out whenever I left the oil fields, because instead of going home and being comfortable and taking some time off like most people would, right? Because I had like $25,000 saved up already from the time of being out there. 25 grand saved up. So most people would be like, man, I'm going to take some time off, spend with the family. I have enough to cover the bills for 2-3 months. So, right. The first thing I did was I came home and I called my cousin, because he was a journeyman at the time. He's a master's now, has his master's as a sign installer. So he installs like the big old signs on the side of the road, and for McDonald's and Panda Express and all that. I called him and I was like, hey man, I need a job. Right. Called him. He was able to bring me in. Started working with him. I was his chalan, right? Riding passenger, because he would need a CDO to drive the big old trucks, haul them big old signs. So I called him, got a job there. And while I was working, which was from late 2019 to early 2020, I was sitting in the passenger seat driving from job site to job site, and I was just on YouTube looking up different businesses. And this is when I, as I mentioned, I was looking into gumball machines. I don't know if you know this YouTuber. His name is Reyes the Entrepreneur. He's located in California, I believe. Mm-hmm. And at the time, he was popping up on my YouTube, right? And he was doing gumballs. And he was like showing how you can make money on the side with gumball machines. And I'm like, let me look into that, right? But then with YouTube's algorithm, gumballs led to vending machines. And then shout out to my boy Jaime. He's in the vending machines here in the DFW area. He's really successful with that. And I started watching his videos, learning about vending machines. And then the algorithm pushed me with ATMs. And then I ran into another guy who was at the time in the ATM business. He was showing how he just shows up to the bank, withdraws some money, fills up his ATM, and he's good for the rest of the month, the rest of the 2 weeks. And once I started to do all that research, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. So as I would sit in the passenger seat, bro, I would have my little notepad and I would start drawing my logo. I'll start coming up with my name. I was like, how am I going to do this, right? It was January of 2020. I came up with everything. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this, right? Out of nowhere, bro. Out of nowhere, jobs started to die out. Everything started to slow down. Our company was like, you guys got to stay at the warehouse. And we were like, what the heck's going on? Well, we started to get the news that some freaking virus started going around, right? COVID-19. Yeah. So then jobs started to slow down. We were at the factory, and I'm a type of person, bro, where I don't like to sit in one spot and be there for 8 hours straight, right? I want to freaking move around. So whenever they told us, you guys are going to stay at the warehouse for X amount of days until we get jobs or whatnot, I was like, heck no, I'm out, right? I quit, and I was like, now's the time to do it. It's now or never, right? I quit my job. There's no turning back. So started my LLC, set up my EIN, set up my business bank account, right? After I signed up for a course or two, and I started my ATM business. And that's how I got started with my business, and, kind of what I did as soon as I left the oil fields. So I left the oil fields, worked that job for like a few months, not even, and started my business January of 2020. And ever since then, bro, I've been in the ATM business.
So would you say the ATM business is your main source of revenue? Or is it the courses that you start making and sell and coach people and all that?
It's a little bit of both, because I've been in the ATM business for 5 years now, or 5 years in January. And being in the ATM business, I've been able to grow my business to over 35 ATMs all across the DFW area, making me over $13K a month, just my ATM business, right? I've also started merchant services, which is credit card machines. I was going to bring the machine with me just to show it. I forgot it. So I started merchant services 6 months ago as well. I have right now 17 locations with merchant services. That means I have 17 different credit card machines in different businesses. And alongside my credit card machines and my ATMs, of course, I have my program where I help entrepreneurs all across the United States also build a business through merchant services and ATMs, right? So I call it the double dip method, right? Imagine going into a barbershop and you place an ATM and a credit card machine. You make money on both sides, whether the customer pays with cash or card, right? So as of 6 months, I've been doing both. But these two businesses make me on average about $20K a month. My ATMs with merchant services combined. And then, of course, my program, I still have that generates me income aside from other investments. So it was my main source of income, but not anymore. But it's still making a decent amount of income, right? Mm-hmm. It's life-changing money to a lot of people. To me, whenever I started, even $5,000 a month from an ATM business, right? And passive income was crazy because it was like, it's already covering my cost of living, right? Yeah. You with 20 grand, you could cover your cost of living, you retire your parents and, help out with, family and bills and things like that. And that's one of my biggest blessings now is I'm able to do that. I'm able to help all my family and, provide and ultimately retire my parents, even though they refuse to. But it's still the opportunity that I'm able to have because of the businesses that I built.
So I know that you said you had started with a course that you found online. So let's be honest right here. Let's be honest. How many of those courses where people are selling online are BS, and how many are legit? And how does somebody who sees, oh, this guy right here has a course on how to do XYZ, how do they determine whether or not the course is BS or whether it's legit?
Most courses, believe it or not, are BS, right? Reason I say this is because I've invested in multiple courses in my journey. And for the most part, it's all information that you get online on YouTube and whatnot, right? People are just making a few $100 per sale, right? So what I would recommend any entrepreneur out there that's looking to get started with any business is invest into a mentor, invest into the guidance, right? There's a saying, right? Why reinvent the wheel when the systems are already there, right? It goes something like that.
No, that's
right?
exactly how it is.
So at the end of the day, right, a course is just a series of videos, right? It's a series of videos, right? Whenever you have questions, who do you go to? You really can't go to nobody, right? I learned this the hard way. I was a cheap ass at the end of the day, right? So I was always afraid to invest in thousands of dollars because I was always, or I at least always had the mentality of, what if I lose my money, right? What if this doesn't work out? But one of the things that I've learned was if something doesn't work out that you've invested into, you cannot blame no one but yourself, right? And that's why right now I recommend anyone, almost everyone, to invest into either a program or a mentor, someone that will physically guide you throughout the entire process, because at that point, there's guaranteed success pretty much if you follow the game plan, right? So far in my journey, I've helped out over 3,000 people start an ATM business. And it's been nothing but, efficiency when it comes to building their business because the systems are already there, right? Everything is already put in place so that they can just copy and paste, right? And that's what I would recommend anyone to do is look into programs, look into mentors, something where you get more of a connection, right? Where you could actually communicate with someone rather than just watching a course. And whenever you have questions, you have nowhere to go, right? And I learned that the hard way, but this is exactly why I say invest into mentors, right? Mm-hmm. Because you learn from people, you learn from their mistakes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So okay. Now that we're gone to the meat and potatoes of the ATM business, what's a day in the life like? Because I see people go in with ATMs and most of the time it's usually banks or Loomies or Brink servicing the ATMs. So what is it like for you as an individual to service those ATMs when you need to? I don't want to disclose which ATMs belong to you, but I'm sure you have a variety of them in like lower income neighborhoods, higher income neighborhoods, just kind of spread out.
Yeah.
How does that factor into how do you decide to service those ATMs? Because obviously it's money, bro. It's a fucking risk. Like somebody can just walk up right now and take all your money. and then just rob you at gunpoint. You know, if there were somebody say, "Oh, let me go take this money to the ATM and put it in the ATM," and how does that work out for you?
Yeah. So it's actually not difficult, right? It's all a matter of how many ATMs you have and where you have them within your area, right? Because, and that's the great thing about an ATM business is you are your own boss. You get to dictate what you want to do and when you want to do it, right? So ideally with my route, for example, I don't fill all 35 of my ATMs in one day, right? Because number one, that would cause me to have a lot of cash on me. And number two, I'd be there all day. I'd be on the road all day, right? And out here in the DFW area, I mean, traffic is insane, right? So I plan my fills, my refills strategically based on, which ATMs need service and which ones don't, right? And ideally, I would fill up maybe 5-6 ATMs a day, right? Depending on which ones need. But I would always set up my route to where if I'm in North Dallas, for example, I would fill up all my ATMs in North Dallas and then fill them up with a decent amount to where when one starts running low, most of them by that time are running low as well, right? And I always like to set up my route that way so that I'm not wasting as much time. And also, I don't have to carry a lot of cash on me. Because although it is a risky job, the great thing about being an independently owned ATM business owner is it's not like Loomis. It's not like Brinks where you're driving a big box truck, right? You're walking around with a big old duffel bag. You got a bulletproof vest, right? You can tell these guys have money, right? So ideally, anybody can plan something and, do some stupid shit, right? With us, we don't wear uniform, right? I don't wear uniform. Whenever I go to fill my ATMs, I look like your average customer, right? I'll have a jacket or my duffel bag, or sometimes I'll have, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 that I used to fill up my ATM, and it fits in my pocket. I'll just walk in, have a regular white tee, some shorts, some shoes, sometimes a hat, sometimes the sunglasses, right? I'll walk up to my ATM. I still look like a customer. I'll start programming it so that I pretty much put in the system that I'm filling it up with X amount of cash. And once I got that done, I still look like a customer. The second that I pull the keys out of my pocket and I start to open the safe, that's when I become an ATM guy. So at that point, that's where you have to be efficient and you have to fill up your ATM as soon as possible. So either you're filling it up there, you're stepping behind the counter at the location, filling it up, putting it right back inside and dipping, right? You don't want to stay too long. But that's one of the benefits of us independently owned ATM business owners is that you don't have a big target on your back because you could go different times. You could go in different vehicles, right? So what I do is I drive like my entire family's vehicles, right? Sometimes I'll drive my vehicle, my girlfriend's vehicle, my parents' vehicles, my sister's siblings, right? Cousins. Sometimes I'll go on a Tuesday morning. Sometimes I'll go on a Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday night, right? So it depends on the location. The higher crime areas, I try to be more, efficient with those and like go in the mornings rather than the evenings. But that's the great thing about the business. You could change it up. You could set your own schedule.
So you said you own about 35 ATMs in the DFW business area.
Correct.
How did scaling that go for you? Like, did you say, I'm going to start off with 1, then go to 2, 3? How did that work out for you?
Yeah. So whenever I started in January of 2020, I was never good at sales, right? I never good in communication. So it was very, very hard to scale my business. I actually started in January of 2020, and I was 6 months into the business with only one ATM. One ATM for 6 months is pretty crazy, right? It's very slow in my opinion. But that was because I wasn't really good at sales. So it was hard to scale my business in the beginning because of the simple fact that I wasn't, that entrepreneur that was good in sales or good in communication, right? But after I decided to take the leap of faith and invest into a mentor or two, I started to learn sales, started to learn communication. At the time, I've invested into one of my mentors till this date that had 30 ATMs at the time, making like 15 grand a month in California. And he kind of gave me the blueprint. And this is why I say mentorships are very important, right? He gave me the blueprint on what he did to grow his business to where he was, right? And all I did was copy it and pasted it into my business, right? Copied and pasted it into my business. I started implementing those different strategies that he showed me, that he taught me. And for the next 6 months of that year of 2020, I was able to grow my business to 4 ATMs. So 4 ATMs for that second year. So grew it to 5 total ATMs for the first year, going from $200 a month to $2,000 a month that first year.
So, do you feel like the fees charged by ATMs are fair, or do you feel like they kind of exploit the customer's need for urgent cash at the time?
I don't see it as exploiting because at the end of the day, number one, it's a $3 fee, right? A lot of people see it as too high, right? A lot of people see it as normal, and some people don't even care, right? But one of the things that I would like to say about that is it's more about convenience, right? That's why it's called a convenience fee, right? A lot of
Yeah.
a lot of people, right? You use Uber Eats when you don't want to drive to the McDonald's or Taco Bell or something, so you order it to your doorstep, right? You got to pay a convenience fee for that. People get on Uber, right? You got to pay a convenience for that, right? So it's, Uber isn't taking advantage of drunk people, right? They're just simply giving them the convenience so that they don't have to go through a situation that would be inconvenient, right? So
Yeah.
similar to with ATMs, right? I have ATMs in a lot of cash only businesses, right? One of the things that I would notice in these cash only businesses before I installed my ATM is that the second that the customers will walk up to the door and see a cash only sign, or they walk inside and the front, the front desk tells them, hey, we're cash only, they walk out. How convenient is it for someone to walk into a taco shop, for example? They're excited to eat tacos. Little did they know they can't even get the tacos because they don't have no cash, right? So this is where I started to place my ATMs inside of these businesses. And now the customer has the convenience to use the ATM there, not have to walk out of the business, drive to their nearest bank, right? And they could just use the ATM, pay a $3 fee. Some people see it as a convenience, right? Because time is money, right? And a lot of people value their time. Would you rather drive 5-10 minutes to your nearest bank just to withdraw $40? Or would you rather withdraw $40 from the ATM that's already in the vicinity and pay $3? Right?
Especially when you go out to like events where there's like pumpkin patches or
Exactly.
county fairs or whatnot, and there's no ATM inside and everything's cash only.
Yeah.
I get that for sure. And it's funny that you mentioned the convenience fee because where I work, everyone complains about the price of a certain product, and I'm like, well, you are here, you are paying for the convenience.
Yeah.
So that's why.
It all comes down to convenience. That's what it is, right? So people are just paying for time, essentially.
So okay, so with all these ATMs in DFW that you own, how do you go about the process of getting targeted for skimming devices and whatnot? How does that affect your whole business about it?
Yeah. So with ATMs, it's a little harder to do something like that because the whole, number one, the whole front cover of an ATM, it's all one piece. So ideally, someone can't put a cover over your card reader because you would be able to tell right away. That's number one. Number two, these newer ATMs, especially right now in 2024, 2023, right? Moving into 2025, these manufacturers are adapting with time. Right?
Yeah.
So they're starting to catch up on a lot of this whole technical stuff, technology that people are able to do. Like back in the day, I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's ATM jackpotting. So people would, and you guys can look this up, right? People would go to an ATM with some type of device, and then the ATM would just start spitting out all the money.
Yeah.
Right? Now you can't do that. The manufacturers themselves had installed this software within the actual system that allows you to essentially deactivate that possibility through the CDU, the actual dispenser that dispenses the cash from your ATM. You're able to now set that up to where you can eliminate that completely. People can't come up to your ATM and hack it anymore. And I mean, it's just, the companies are adapting with time, right? The manufacturers are seeing what's happening, and then they're slowly implementing so that it prevents those things from happening, right?
Since we're talking about adapting, well, the world and then the economy here in the country, they're adapting to a digital form of currency where, I mean, everybody knows this. You pull out your debit card, you pay, you're this, you're that. Sooner or later, those cash only businesses are going to have to catch up. So do you think, where in your mind do you think that the ATM business will become obsolete? And if we ever get to that point, where do you see yourself taking the next step into another endeavor of entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So ATMs, in my opinion, I don't think are going anywhere, at least in our lifetime. Although we do see more digital currency happening right now, I don't think that cash is going to completely go away, right? like I said, at least in our lifetime. So therefore, that leaves us still a lot of opportunity. I mean, we're in 2024, 2025 practically now, right?
Yeah.
And I just landed a cash only bar in October of 2024, right? And last month, this cash only bar made me $3,000, just one ATM, and an ATM cost me $2,500, right? So it made me 100 and extra percent on my return on investment just from this one machine.
It paid for itself essentially.
Exactly, in 1 month. And I have that contract for 3 years, right? So that being said, although we are moving into this digital currency and crypto and all this jazz, right? I at least don't think cash is going away, right? But this is why I'm also now endeavoring into merchant services. Now I'm also taking advantage of credit card machines. Most people don't think that you can own a credit card machine, right? People think just like with ATMs, banks own them, right? You can own a credit card machine, or you can start a business with merchant services and place a credit card machine in the business. So regardless whether they want cash or not, you're still making money every time someone swipes their card. And that's why I've endeavored into merchant services. Now I'm double dipping. So let's just say, for example, hypothetically speaking, but like I said, I don't think this is happening. But hypothetically speaking, let's just say cash goes away. Everyone's using card now. Well, I still have my merchant services portfolio that is still continuously making me passive, if not residual income, right? And that's what I help every single one of my students. Anybody that decides that they want to work with me, enroll within my programs, within my mentorships, they get the option to start both businesses, ATMs and merchant services, right? That way they can take advantage of events, right? I still do events out here in Texas, or just, I mean, they're, I think, nationwide, bandas y trocas, right?
Yeah. We
do bandas y trocas. We charge like $10 per transaction at bandas y trocas.
That's wild.
And it's crazy, but everyone pays for it. Our average ATM, me and my partner, makes about $1,000 a day at bandas y trocas. But guess what? People are willing to pay that. Right?
Yeah.
People are willing to pay that because no one's going to leave. No one's going to go to the bank, right? No one's going to run across the highway and go to the freaking, the what is it?
To the gas station
the
to go,
Buc-ee's,
yeah.
Because there's a Buc-ee's across from the
North
Texas
Lake.
Motor. Yeah. So no one's going to do that, right? And that's what, that kind of brings me back to what I was saying, right? ATMs, regardless, it's still going to be a great thing. I don't think it's going to go anywhere in our lifetime. But even if it did, at least we still have merchant services, which is why I've started this business 6 months ago and now teach every single one of my students. So everyone that signed up with me in the past for ATMs by themselves, they automatically get grandfathered in to my merchant services program as well, so that they can learn how to do merchant services and they can also do it, because merchant service industry is a big blue ocean. That right there, even though 95% of businesses have credit card machines, what they don't have is the cash discount. And the cash discount is how we make money. Pretty much the merchant, instead of them paying processing fees, because every merchant pays processing fees on credit card machines, they now pass the fee on to the customer as a convenience fee, it's called a non-cash adjustment fee. It's 3 to 4%. I don't know if you've gone to like businesses where you pay with card, they charge you an extra 3%.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And now we, as the merchant services business, make a small fee from that, because out of that 3%, half of that goes to like MasterCard, Amex, Visa, and then the other half goes to the company, which is you and your ISO. And that's how you make money with merchant services. So that's why I've started this business. And like I said, every person that have enrolled with me in the past automatically gets access to that, because I'm not the type of person that if I enrolled you into one of my programs and I've started something else and the information is already there, I'm not the type of person that feels the need to charge them extra to get that access as well. If you've already invested in me in the beginning and you believed in me, there's no reason why I would charge you extra. So every single one of my students literally does not have to pay for merchant services. They get automatic access to start that business. And that's the great thing about mentorships. Your network is truly your net worth, right?
Yeah.
They've invested into my program, right, to start an ATM business. And who would have thought that 2-3 years later they were gonna get access to another business for free, right? And that's why your network is your net worth. You just never know, but that's why relationships are very important.
So when did you decide that you wanting to do mentorship was appropriate for the ATM business? Because okay, so for example, I can teach people how to make content at this point in the game, when I started making my podcasts, earlier. But for you, it's a little bit different because you're teaching somebody how to run a business, how to operate certain equipment, how to pick and choose where, how to basically do sales. But at what point in your life did you feel like, all right, it's time for me to take this social media and become a mentor,
Yeah.
so to speak?
Well, believe it or not, the reason why I started my mentorship program was because whenever I started my business, my ATM business for fun, I was just posting content on TikTok. I was just posting videos on TikTok. This was 2020, right? And whenever I started posting content, slowly but surely, I started getting more and more views. More people started watching. More people started following me, right? I ended up hitting 10,000 followers, right? One of my videos in 2020 got like 1.1 million views, right? So I had a viral video in 2020 right as soon as I started my business. So I didn't think nothing of it. I never thought like I would teach people and help people start a business because I also had the mentality at the time that was like, why create competition for myself? If I teach people, I'm just going to help people, start this business and take some of my, business, right? But at the end of the day, there's enough room for everybody, right? Everybody can eat and be comfortable, right? And when I started to realize that and my views started to go up, my content started to skyrocket, I was like, you know what? Let me start a course. Let me start a course that I never had because I've invested into multiple courses, but they were all just, all right, you want to start an ATM business? Set up your LLC, set up your EAN, get a business bank account, go with Bank of America or something, find a location, and you're good. And that was the course, literally, right? So what I was doing was I started soaking in all the questions that every person on my TikTok had, and I created a course tailored to that, where not only was I teaching you how to start the business, but also what mistakes to avoid as a beginner, because I went through that. I had banks shut me down. I had locations that I lost, right? I had business owners tell me, hey, take your ATM out. And there was nothing that I can do, right? Because I just wasn't educated enough. I was learning from my experience because at the time I started with courses rather than mentors, right? So then whenever I started to post online and I started to get a lot of questions, people were like, can you show me how to do this? I want to learn how to do this. I want to make money. I'm working construction, right? I also want to make some side income or whatnot. So I started off by doing Zoom calls with people. I started offering people Zoom calls, and I would charge them $200-$300 for a Zoom call session for 1 hour. And I would teach them the entire blueprint on starting an ATM business, right? Well, I got to the point where I started to like book my entire day with Zoom calls, and I just pretty much created another job for me, right?
Yeah.
It was a damn good paying job. I was making $200-$300 an hour, but it was just too busy. And I had my daughter at the time now. So I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and create some type of course. Created a course. I realized the course wasn't really enough. A lot of people had questions, right? I wasn't trying to sit there and answer emails all day. So what I did was I created a program where not only do you get access to an entire curriculum, but you get access to a community. You get access to my admin team, right? You get access to my entire team. You have a group chat specifically for you that will help you and tailor to your needs. So if you ever have questions, if you ever need any PDFs, any links, anything that you need, that's what the group chat is. The group chat is there for you. And now that I've delegated some processes, now I have an entire team around me. Not only are we still able to provide that one-on-one help to every single one of our students, but it also allows me to step back and focus on content, focus on growing the program and implementing new strategies, right? And continue to invest in myself, because even till this day, I invest in myself. Literally last week, I invested into a $15,000 program actually. And everything that I invest into, I literally learn it, soak it, copy and paste it into my program, so every single one of my students can also take advantage of all the resources. Because like I said, bro, like I'm not a believer in freaking gatekeeping stuff. Like if I have something, all it's gonna do is just make me more valuable. People are gonna see me as a more valuable asset to them, and it's only gonna want to make them want to work with me, right? So that's why I don't gatekeep stuff. Like, and I don't upsell and charge people extra, because I was once in their shoes. I was once a 9-to-5er. I was once afraid to invest my money, right? So that's why everything that I learned, and you're already a student of mine, you don't have to pay extra for that. Because you believed in me, you're going to get it, right?
Yeah. So when it comes to making these deals to get your ATM in certain locations, You know, a lot of people, and I've seen other videos of other people who have ATMs, and they're like, yeah, you put it X, Y, Z and that. But what's that process like where you're in negotiations with the business owner and you're like, hey, I want to put it here. And I mean, you don't have to disclose the contents of every contract you have with different people, but is it more so of they benefit, you basically sell them the benefit and they're like, okay, well, I didn't need this, but I guess I do need it now. Or how does that play out?
Yeah. I mean, it all comes down to sales, right? And sales is the trend. What did one of my mentors tell me? He's like, it's the transfer of the transfer of certainty, I think. Sorry, Hugh. Hugh's my mentor in sales. And it's ultimately you providing some sort of solution to some sort of problem they have, right? And it goes back to what you were saying. You sell them on a benefit, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about, right? So whenever it comes down to speaking to businesses, number one, you don't just randomly walk into a business and be like, hey, I have an ATM. Can I install it in your business, right? Most of the time, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be like, no, thanks. I'm not interested, right? But if you walk in and you're like, hey, I see that you have Square. I believe with Square, you're paying a lot of credit card processing fees. I actually have a barbershop across the street or across town that we place an ATM in their business for free. You don't have to worry about a single thing. You don't have to pay us anything. We install an ATM, help drive more customers to the ATM, and it helps you lower those credit card fees. Is that something that you'd be interested in, right? Some people would be like, man, I'm in a contract and I can't get out of this, so I'm stuck paying this processing fees. I would love to have an ATM and push people to an ATM, because if they pay with cash, number one, there's no processing fees on that. Number two, I mean, who doesn't love cash, right? Every business loves cash. I mean, there's not one business that wouldn't want to take
sorry
cash.
to interrupt, but at that point in the negotiation, is there ever a time where you thought it was a good idea to just help them get out of their contract to get the ATM in that location because you saw that location had a high traffic and it was more of, well, dang, I really need to get into this space because, like, if I don't, I'm gonna miss out and somebody else might take the space or I might miss out on an opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's exactly how I look at it, because especially now that I do merchant services, that is my exact approach. Every time I have a business that has not only high traffic, it's in a prime area, right? And they have like Square, Toaster, like Clover or something. My main thing is go in with something simple, something that doesn't involve a lot of like compliance, a lot of like contracts and whatnot, which is an ATM. As an ATM business owner, you get to negotiate your deal the way you want it. If you want to do a handshake agreement, you could do that. If you want to have a contract, a written contract, you could do that. If you want to set it up for 30 days, you could do that, right? If you want to do it for 5 years, you could do that, right? So you could do whatever you want as an ATM business owner. That's the great thing about it. So it's the best way to be able to walk into a business, offer them a service without any strings attached, without like making them feel forced, like obligating them to want to work with you. And that's the great thing about this business, because one of the things that I've done in my journey is I walk into a business after I, of course, done my research, right? Seen what issues, what problems they have, right? Tailored my pitch to them, right? And every time I walk into the business, I finish it off like this. Hey, how about this? We install my ATM for 30 days. You won't sign my contract. We'll just see how the ATM does in your business. If it benefits you, if it lowers your processing fees, if it increases your foot traffic, because we put the ATM on like Google Maps and all that stuff. If it increases your traffic, right? If it just benefits your business all the way around, we'll come back. We'll look over the report. We'll sit down and then we'll go over the agreement. How does that sound? And when you give someone the opportunity to try something without any sort of obligation, they feel more comfortable with working with you, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I've been able to find a lot of success with scaling my business, is by simply walking in and not obligating to work with them, not being too salesy, because when you're salesy and you're pushy, all they do is put up a defense barrier and they push you away, right? But when you're like, hey, man, you know, we don't have to do this, but hey, we could try for 30 days. Worst comes to worst, it doesn't benefit you. I'll just come pull my ATM and we'll part as friends, right? But at least you tried. And the great thing about trying is you're establishing relationships, right? It might not work for him, but he might have remembered that he has a business partner or two or a friend or two that may need an ATM. And now you got a referral from that location.
Yeah, the funny thing about referrals too is that 9 times out of 10, like if you're the first person to work with somebody and the experience wasn't complete shit, they're gonna use you as the referral, whether or not somebody else came around, maybe another ATM merchant came and said, let's do XYZ, maybe there's three more after that. They're always going to refer back to that first person that came in that made that impression.
Yep.
It's so crazy, dude. It's funny because I know people who have certain businesses and whatnot, and I'm like, oh, I could go to you, but I always just refer somebody to the first person that put me on because they made that impression. They're like, okay, this is gonna work out for me. So, oh man, ATMs. What do you want to do after you find an exit out of the ATM business? Do you want to continue this as long as you can, or besides that, what other endeavors do you have going on?
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to continue ATMs. I'm not the type of person to sell off my ATM business or just get rid of it completely. I mean, it's passive income. Every single month, I make my 100% return on investment every time. So right now I have like 5 ATMs that I bought recently that are sitting at my house ready to go out for a location, whether it's a mobile event or just a permanent location, right? And I don't plan on getting out because realistically speaking, I've made my money back. So let's just say freaking, something happens where I just got to get rid of my ATM business. It wouldn't matter because my ATMs paid for themselves. I already got my money back, right? And at this point, it's just passive income. So I wouldn't necessarily sell my ATM business because it's guaranteed passive income, right? And it's one of the reasons also why I'm endeavoring in merchant services. Because merchant services, every time you install a credit card machine in a business, now you're making residual income. Now you're making guaranteed income. As long as that business stays open, which, every business owner, they start a business to be in business for a long time. They don't start a business to just be in business for 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
So as long as that business is open, I'm making money. And that's the great thing about both ATMs and merchant services is you're constantly making money. So I don't think I'll ever sell it off, because I'm making just money every single month. But my next endeavors, like I was telling you earlier, is definitely real estate. Real estate, it's always, it's made the most millionaires, I believe, or something like that. Mm-hmm. So it's like, real estate is definitely my next game plan. It's like my long-term goal. It's like owning apartment complexes and like big real estate portfolios that, I can have that to pass on to my girls because I have 2 little girls now. So it's definitely something. It's cash flow, man. It's something that I'm going to continue to hold. Hopefully when my girls get older and they, start to live their adulthood lives, they can take on my portfolios, my ATM portfolios, my merchant services, credit card machine portfolios, my real estate portfolios, right? And take care of that. But yeah, I don't think I'll ever set it off. I'll just expand, if you will.
So whenever it comes to expanding, what do you feel like you need to do to expand? Is it more money, more mentors, or is it more so just timing? Because everybody talks about scaling, but in order to make that next move, you have to have certain pieces in line to be able to make that next move, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what are the 3 things that you're looking forward into the future to make that move into real estate?
Yeah, so this is why I continue to invest in myself, right? I can't do it on my own, number 1, right? And number 2, if I'm not familiar with that niche, I would rather educate myself first before diving in, right? That's one of my sales coaches used to tell me all the time, right? It's all about learning how to do it. And the best way to learn how to do it is follow someone else's path. Right. And that's why I continue to invest in myself, because I just want to learn how to actually get into a certain niche or real estate, for example, before I actually dive in. So it does come down to time, and it does come down to money as well, because you're not going to learn for free. There's a lot of people out there who are willing to give you information for free and help you out. But for the most part, a lot of people will charge you because their time is valuable, right? No one's going to sit there with you for an hour, 2 hours and walk you through an entire process and get nothing out of it, right? Everybody has to eat. So that's definitely my game plan, but it all comes down to time, and it all comes down to delegation, right? You have to be able to delegate things before you want to move on to the next. If you focus on too many different things, you're just going to be running around like a headless chicken, managing this business, and you're going to be all over the place to the point where both businesses aren't going to scale because you haven't focused on one. So what I want to do is focus on my current businesses. So far with my ATM business, I've delegated like 50% of it right now. 50% of it is getting vaulted by other people, and 50% I'm vaulting myself. But I do plan on having my entire portfolio vaulted, meaning someone else is filling up my ATM. So that's completely out of my hands. Still making money, but it's out of my hands. Credit card machines, I don't have to worry about that because I don't have to show up and do anything to the machines. I install the machines and I can go on vacation for 6 months. And those machines will continue to make me money as long as those businesses are up and running and making revenue, right? So that's already good and out of the way. My next big move right now is having my program where it's like my entire team is essentially managing everything. Like, of course, I'm still part of it. I still jump on calls with all my students and do live trainings on a weekly basis and help them out with everything they need. But once that gets taken care of, then I can start focusing on real estate, because now all my companies, even if I was to step away for 2-3 months, they'll still be running, up and running, right? And that's what it all comes down to. So whenever I get that completed and delegated and whatnot, then I'll focus in real estate and start looking into that.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Passive income is the word of the day, guys. So if you need
Cash
some
flow, passive income.
cash flow, passive income. So if you need cash flow or passive income, make sure you actually tap in with Juan, the ATM guru, Jeronimo. And oh my God, bro, just the whole time you're talking about this, I'm just playing it in my head. I'm trying to put you in these different stores, going in there, just like, all right, boom, dropping money, loading, go, this and that. But I guess my last question before we wrap things up is, do you have anything you want to plug in?
Yeah, man. So where you guys can find me is on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. In my Instagram right now, it's the Juan Jeronimo. So TheJuanJeronimo. That's my Instagram. My TikTok, same thing. Juan Geronimo, the Juan Geronimo. And then my YouTube is Juan Geronimo. I also have a free Facebook group. It's called Well Streams for Beginners. And it's a Facebook group that's completely free. Anybody can join the group. Anyone that's willing to learn how to make passive and residual income through ATMs and merchant services can join that group. I'll give you the link to link it down below or something. And all you have to do is just request to join. Once my admin team brings you in, you would have access to everything in that group, from mini courses, guides, my student success stories, live trainings. I go live every single Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time inside of that group, and I just drop a bunch of valuable information. Like yesterday, I went on live and I talked about location prospecting to maximize profits within this business. We also talked about rookie mistakes and how to avoid them. And then also ultimately how you can scale the business as a beginner, right? How can you grow the business as a beginner with little to no funds, right? So we go in all in when it comes to just entrepreneurship in general in that group right there. So Well Streams for Beginners on Facebook.
Alrighty, guys. With that being said, I hope you guys learned a thing or two about some passive income today. Because the last time we did a passive income episode, either it was photo booths or it was Forex. So today, ATMs and merchant services. So make sure you guys check everything down below in the description. Make sure you give us a like, subscribe. Go ahead and follow Juan on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook. Join that, get that free information. And until then, we'll see you on the next one.